news. The court was in recess in Manhattan today. The judge in Donald Trump's hush money trial has given the former president Wednesdays off to focus on the campaign. But no escape from the evidence that we heard yesterday from the former adult film star Stormy Daniels. It was plastered across the front pages of the morning papers as the cable news channels served up a breakfast buffet of carefully edited highlights. Her account of that sexual encounter in 2006 were at times so salacious the judge was forced to intervene, and at one point was scolding the former president, who was cursing under his breath.
As you see, their case is totally falling apart. They have nothing on books and records, and even something that should bear very little relationship to the case. It's just a disaster for the DA, for the Soros-backed DA. It's a disaster.
Neama Rahmani is former federal prosecutor. He is back with us. He joins us live from Los Angeles. Great to have you back on the programme. It was a remarkable moment yesterday. I think we've heard this story many times through different accounts in her book, but the idea of her sitting there opposite a former US president and setting all this out, what sort of effect do you think that's had?
Remarkable is right. I would say extraordinary. I've never seen testimony like this where someone is describing in great detail the scandal, the cringeworthy details of a sexual encounter with Donald Trump, going so far as to say Trump and Melania sleep in separate rooms, describing the sexual position the former president was in and the fact that he had unprotected sex. I could not believe that Trump's lawyers were not objecting and allowed this evidence to come in.
Well, that's a really interesting point, because the feeling of his supporters is that this is a political hit job, and even the judge said yesterday he was amazed the defence didn't jump in earlier. Was it entirely necessary on the part of the prosecution?
I don't think it was necessary, because the charges in this case, they're false business records. And frankly, it doesn't really matter whether the affair with Stormy Daniels happened or not. It's how they were booked and accounted for. Were they legal expenses? Were they a hush money payment? So the judge did allow some questioning, but it really went sideways. And we heard the sordid details of this affair that, frankly, the jurors and the American and British public did not need to know.
Does the prosecution risk losing the thread with some of this? I think the defence did a fairly decent job on rebuttal yesterday. She'll be back on the stand saying tomorrow to finish that up. But does that matter to the jury? I mean, does the salacious detail take them away from what the central point of the case is?
Potentially, yes, and some jurors were looking away, and they may have appeared to be disgusted. I think the defense did an outstanding job on cross-examination, like we knew they would. Stormy Daniels has changed her story consistently over the 1.5 decades since this happened. And even on the stand, she was giving inconsistent testimony. She said that she wanted her story to be told. Well, you were paid $130,000 not to tell your story. And of course, we know that she has a financial motive to lie, because this affair did elevate her own profile, and she still owes the former president more than $500,000 for her failed defamation suit.
Neama, we'll talk more. It begins again tomorrow. Stormy Daniels returning to the stand, still waiting, of course, for his former legal advisor, Michael Cohen. That will be the blockbuster testimony of this trial. Now, the Chinese President Xi Jinping